Alrighty, Hacksters, it's been a long time since I did a live unboxing, but today is going to satisfy lots of itches you have for Raspberry Pi, Arduino, RP2040, and maybe some other things that we haven't talked about recently. So here we have a package from Cytron, who are a manufacturing company based out of Malaysia, and they create tons of cool products that make it easier to work with Arduino, Raspberry Pi, and also using MicroPython and things like that. So we're going to take a look. I have an idea of what's in this package, and you can see links in the description, but I think it's going to be a lot of interesting stuff. Ooh. We've featured Cytron before, and their founder, Ober Chu, on our channel. You can find the link to that in the description, or here. The Maker Uno, when it was on Kickstarter in March of 2018, and Ober was showing us how this thing works. It is sort of an educational-friendly Arduino Uno that includes like buttons and LEDs hooked up to each of the GPIO pins and things like that make it much easier to get started. So you don't have to like hook up a button and look up how to like put the resistors on for like pull up or pull down or whatever. And you don't have to hook up LEDs to it. They're just built right into the board, which is really cool for an Arduino Uno. It's like an upgraded one. And it was $6 at the time. It's probably about the same now. I haven't looked in a while, but enough about old stuff. Let's check out the new stuff. Yeah. I can see your comments, and so feel free to drop stuff like questions in there, and I'll answer them to the best of my knowledge. I am going to try and go in depth on one or two of these, and we'll come back to it another time. But we're on a little bit of a schedule, so I'm going to just get right down to it. So here we have, first up, the Maker Pi Pico. Okay, this is one of the flagship things. They're telling me a lot of interesting stuff they're doing in terms of creating software examples for this. One of the cool things about lots of their boards is that they seem to have little ports in them so that you can use the box itself that it comes in as an enclosure. Check out these two little USB indicators on here as well. You can push those in. And there's a spot for your name. So it's very classroom friendly for one thing. Let's take a look at the product page and then we'll get it out of the box. Maker Pi Pico. Here we go. So, no, actually, that's too much of a preview. Let's just get it out of the box now, because I want to take a look at it physically. So here we have, whoop, upside down, Maker Pi Pico. And I would like for it to focus, but it's not agreeing right now, so we'll get this open. And I've already torn the box because I'm terrible. And Maker Pi Pico comes with a pinout sheet showing all of the attachments that you have. It's very small, but if you go to the product page that I've got linked below, it is there's a very big version that you can enlarge there. You've got little pictures of happy children and stuff. Here's a more close-up view of the Raspberry Pi Pico pin diagram. Why do they have a diagram of the Pico itself? Like, they didn't create the Pico, but it is soldered on directly to this board already. So let's get it out of there. Anti-ESD packaging, hooray! Oh! Come on, out of there. Oh, I'm so impatient. But it's getting caught on something. We've got some jumpers somewhere or something. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Beautiful. Can you focus? Oh, it's making me cry because it won't focus. There we go. Anyway, so here's our Raspberry Pi Pico soldered on in the middle here. And if it's not going to behave, then I'm just gonna show you. And we'll take a look at the product page later for close-ups. So we've got an RGB LED. We've got a bunch of Grove hookups for I2C modules. So you can attach any of the C Grove modules like potentiometers, buttons, various types of gas sensors, light sensors, color sensors, LED rings, all kinds of actuators and sensors to these 3 ports here over I2C. Very well documented. Oh, one of the cool things about the Pico is that it can be soldered flat to the board with these castellated edges, and they've done that. This one looks hand soldered. Oh, so charming. You've got 20 pins on a side, so each of these headers has 20 pins. They're compatible with female jumper wires, of course. You got a place for a micro SD card, and we'll come back to this later, because that's another one of the things that they've sent, actually, I think. You've got a piezo buzzer speaker over there. You've also got an audio out here. You've got 3 buttons, GPA20, GPA21, and GP22. And on the back, there is a whole listing of the pinout of the RP2040 Raspberry Pi Pico. So that's very cool. You can cut this jumper on the bottom to disable the GPIO LEDs. And as with the Maker Uno, as I just suggested, you've got an LED on each of the GPIO pins. So instead of having to attach LEDs, you can easily give little visual displays by just telling each of those pins to turn on or off, and the LED will come on or off. You can disable that, again, by cutting the jumper on the back. But oh, isn't that cool? Just like an LED built into each GPIO pin, so that you don't have to attach anything to it. But you easily can because of these jumper wires, but you don't have to. So good. And there's 3 more Grove connectors over here. I think this is a really cool board. Cytron makes just such cool technology. It's so usable. And look, you've got another spot to put your name on, and you've got an audio cutoff switch down here. So if you are in a classroom, you can ask people to turn their audio off. Or, you can troubleshoot the rest of your code without having it constantly beeping, which is a thing that I've encountered with some projects. You want to test the rest of it, but you don't want to upload a different kind of code, because what if there's some kind of timing issue with the audio going on, but at the same time, you don't want to have it going beep, 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 the whole time that you're debugging. So this is very cool for that. I love that there's an audio cutoff switch, and it works over micro USB. You just hook up the Raspberry Pi Pico to your computer, and then you're ready to go. This is so cool. So that's the Maker Pi Pico, and it's linked in the description below. You can find the product page here. It's $9.90, which is just, they're really good at making really affordable, really cool boards. Look at everything you get with this. And you get the Pi Pico with it. Pretty. All pins are clearly labeled with GPIO status indicator LEDs. Lots of nice imagery here. Here's that bigger image of the pinout that I promised you. You can put jumper wires on. You've got the, did I miss anything? LED GPI or GP25 boot select button. LED indicators, micro SD card. We talked about that, but we're going to come back to it. Oh yeah, and there's a spot for an ESP01 Wi-Fi module right here. And it's already a female connector. I don't have one handy right here, but it's a little female header that you can just stick the pins into. So if you have an ESP01, ESP8266 Wi-Fi module, you can easily just connect it there. So cool. There's so much going on here. It's incredible. Okay, let's pull something else out of the box. We got a long way to go. It's a very exciting day. Anything in here? No, just some pink. Okay, Maker Nano. You might be familiar with the Arduino Nano. This is the Maker Nano, simplifying Arduino for projects, and it's a similar idea to what I just showed you with the RP2040, only it's sort of it's more of a similar idea to the Maker Uno. So whereas the Maker Uno is like an Arduino Uno plus a speaker and a bunch of GPIO indicator LEDs, this is sort of like that, but for the Nano. So we've got, again, a row of GPIO indicator LEDs. You've got your reset button, which you would have on the regular Arduino Nano, but you've also got a user programmable button for interacting with it. And again, you have a built-in piezo speaker on the back here. And again, you have a switch to turn it off. And this guy works with a micro USB again. It's very friendly at Mega 328p. Yeah, it's very friendly. And compared to the Arduino Nano, they actually have a really nice comparison on here. So this is $7.25. If you get the Arduino Nano, it is $20.70. Plus you get a volume discount if you buy more. We've got lots of, different example things. Arduino Nano form factor, straight to the fun. This is succinctly exactly their value proposition here. Not only is it cheaper, but it has all these built-in features. Oh, it's so good. One programmable push button and one piezo buzzer and 12 LEDs built in. So they have a comparison here. It is compatible with the original Arduino Nano, and this is the one that I kind of want to test in a minute. So we'll come back to this. But for example, they show you that what some of the examples are, or the advantages are over here. VIN, interestingly, the Nano can take 7 to 12 volts, the Arduino Nano, but the Maker Nano can take 7 to 30 volts, which makes it interesting to me in terms of like, you could maybe power it off of a different type of source, like maybe some weird solar array or some weird, I was just looking at this, a portable USB charger that's a, what do you call it? A wind turbine from Tex Energy, and you could power it off of a wind turbine. I mean, they both go up to 12 volts, but 30 volts is ridiculous. You could do some really weird stuff there. I can't even imagine what. They've got a really nice, again, a big diagram of it with different dimensions and things, and then resources for that, including a data sheet and pinout diagram and a schematic and all that good stuff. So I'm going to try that with the Arduino IDE later on. We also have the Maker Pi RP2040, and it says it's for simplifying robotics with the Raspberry Pi RP2040. So, as you might know, the RP2040 is Raspberry Pi's first foray into making their own silicon. And so they have their own microcontroller chip. So the Pi Pico is their first microcontroller. It's not like a single board computer. And then it runs off of the RP2040 chip. So what they've done here is take the RP2040 and build it into this board that's good for robotics. I haven't looked up all the details on this one, but we're going to take a look at the sheet in a minute. We've got motor 1 and 2 screw terminal attachments here. Doot, 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 doot. Very nice. We've got voltage in 3.6 to 6 volts. We've got a LiPo attachment here, so for a lithium polymer battery with this JST connector. We've got an on-off switch! I love it when people remember to put on-off switches on things, especially if you've got battery power. Like, I can't remember if the Microbit V2 has an on-off switch, but the first one definitely didn't. And so in order to make it stop doing its thing, you had to completely unplug it. And if you had it connected to a battery pack, you better hope that your battery pack has an on-off switch, or else you're going to be like pulling on it with your fingernails, and oh, it's always the worst. So I love it when they have an on-off switch on there. Tariq says, how much is that? Let's find out. So this is the Maker Pi RP2040. We're going to pull it up here. I think it's this one. Yes. Okay. So $9.90. Again, very cheap, in my opinion. It's very affordable for what you get with it. So, cool. They have 26 of them available. You can only buy 2 of them at a time. Perhaps because there's been some limited availability of the RP2040 chip, understandably, given everything going on. But yeah, check this out. Simplifying robotics. Comes with dual-channel DC motor driver, 4 servo motor ports, and 7 Grove I/O connectors, ready for your next DIY robot/motion control project. Now you can build a robot while trying out the new RP2040 chip. So let's take a closer look at this. As they mentioned, you've got 7 Grove ports, so there's 5 along the bottom here, and 2 on the sides for I2C. You do have GP20 and GP21 input buttons. You've also got, oh cool! There's 4 buttons up here labeled M2B, M2A, M1B, and M1A, and that makes me think of an H-bridge. In fact, that might be what that chip in the middle is, which allows you to basically easily control the motors without rigging up all this horrible stuff with transistors and stuff. It's an easy motor controller, and so you may be able to control the motors using those physical input buttons without even doing much coding. I bet they have an example for that too, because we're going to take a look at their GitHub, and they have a ton of cool stuff. Again, you have digital I/O status pins. Very cool. You've got a couple of RGB LEDs, 0 and 1, and those are labeled with GP18. Check that. Oh yeah. So my assumption is that based on the fact that they're both labeled GP18 and one is labeled 0 and one is labeled 1, they are basically RGB, like NeoPixel style, WS2812 style LEDs that you can program as a strip of 2 LEDs. That is my assumption. Again, you have a piezo buzzer. Again, you have an on-off switch for the audio. Very nice. I appreciate that so much. Just like people don't think about the value of switches on a maker board, and it just makes it so much easier to prototype, in my opinion. Which is all that matters because this is my video. Here's your micro USB port as usual. It's interesting that they're sticking with micro USB. As far as I know, it's less expensive to implement than USB-C, and also it's honestly, I've very rarely had a micro USB port fail on a project. So let's see. So Lionel says up to 30 volt makes sense to apply in trucks, which have 24-volt battery instead of the 12-volt in cars. That's really cool to know. So the fact that this Maker Nano board can take up to 30 volts instead of the 12 of the original Arduino Nano, that makes it useful in trucks. Thank you, Lionel. That's really cool to know. You have a troll profile picture that makes people think they've got a hair on their screen. Let's see. There was one other thing I wanted to show you, actually, which was the GitHub page for the Maker Pi Pico, which we looked at a second ago. That was the first bigger board. In fact, the first board at all we looked at that has the Pi Pico mounted on it. This guy. Remember that? 6 Grove ports, SD card, etc. So on here, they have a bunch of example code for using it with IoT, for IoT using CircuitPython, which is a really wonderful, it's like Adafruit's branch of MicroPython. So there's MicroPython, which is like Python that you can run on microcontrollers, and then there's CircuitPython, which is Adafruit's version of MicroPython because they wanted to have certain features. Yeah, and here we go. So required hardware. Maker Pi Pico or Cytron Maker Pi RP2040. So actually either of these larger boards will work with that. This one has an actual Pico on it. This one has an RP2040 chip, but not the entire board on it. You can upgrade the firmware on the ESP01 module. And then all this, some cool examples for here. Adafruit.io, control the onboard LED through the LED feed in Adafruit.io if you use that interface. Blink is another IoT interface that is compatible with your phone. Then there's simple tests, scan for available Wi-Fi access points and connect to the one and ping the Google DNS. And send a message to Telegram via the Telegram bot. Plus there's ThingSpeak and lots of other cool stuff going on here. Neat. The documentation is just lovely. So let's get into the rest of the stuff in here. There's 3 more things in here, and they're a different flavor of item. So these are all storage. They have their own series called Maker Disk. Approved by Raspberry Pi for use with Raspberry Pi products. This is a micro SD card. I believe it's 64 gigabytes. Let's open it up. It is 64 gigs, and we'll take a look at the page for this in a second. But as I mentioned before, that will go straight into the Maker Pi Pico. You can use it for that. Although I think that this might be loaded with the Raspberry Pi OS, which wouldn't run on this. It might be more for storage, but let's check it out. I'll put that in there so I don't lose it. So the Maker Disk micro SD card. Here we go. Raspberry Pi accessories. So this is the Raspberry Pi approved Maker Disk micro SD card with the Raspberry Pi OS preloaded onto it. It comes in 32, 64, and 128 gigabyte flavors. 32 is $11, 64 is $15.50, and 128 gigs is $30. So it's been tested and approved by as they mentioned, by the Raspberry Pi Foundation. It comes preloaded with the Raspberry Pi OS, and it is ready to boot up on any Raspberry Pi computer. Please do not format it if you intend to use it with the Raspberry Pi board, because then you would not have the Raspberry Pi OS on it, and you would have to go into your computer and reload it with the Raspberry Pi OS. I will say that there's now a Raspberry Pi OS loader application, a flasher that you can get and download to your computer. Previously, I've been using Balena Etcher, which was a really good application for uploading the Raspberry Pi OS or other things onto SD cards. But now there's an official Raspberry Pi OS flasher that you can use to put different flavors of the OS on. You can even select different options so that, like, if you want, I think, for example, you might be able to preload it with your Wi-Fi credentials, and then when you put it into your Raspberry Pi, you don't have to set that up. Things like your keyboard location, layout, types of things. But yeah, anyway, this comes pre-flashed with it, so don't format it, or if you do, you'll have to use that Raspberry Pi flasher again. This goes straight into your Raspberry Pi, and it'll hook it up. So they've got a really good speed test on here, and the results exceed the requirement needed for Class A1 and also the specifications by the Raspberry Pi Foundation. So here's the diagnostics test for the 128 MicroDisk microSD card. Now, this is the thing. Oh, it comes with Buster. So here's the thing. You can run Raspberry Pi off of a microSD card, which is the way that I've always done it. But these final two items here are solid-state drives for the Raspberry Pi. One of them is SATA and one of them is M2, I think. Yeah. Oh, they're both SATA 3, but one of them is... Oh, wait, they're both the same. Maybe they're not. Let's open them up and find out. The links are in the description below. We'll get to them in a second. One of them is definitely heavier, so I feel like this is the M2 because it's... it would be lighter. Come to me. Yeah, so here's what I would expect to see with an M2 stick. We've got a 240 gigabyte. 240 gigabytes to talk to your Raspberry Pi. That's incredible. Wow. So first off, thank you, Cytron, for sending this. And I didn't even know that you could use this type of memory with your Pi, and you can boot from it and check it out. So this is the M2 2280 MicroDisk SATA 3 SSD with RPi OS. And this is in this other form factor that is next generation form factor, NGFF. Yeah. So it comes preloaded with the Raspberry Pi OS, and it's ready to boot up on the Raspberry Pi 4 Model B or the Raspberry Pi 400 with the latest bootloader firmware. Again, don't format it if you want to use it with the Raspberry Pi board. They have information on getting it set up with the firmware, your Pi set up with the firmware. Check this out. 240 gigs. And how much is it? $33. Oh, wait, that's for 128. $50 for 240 gigs. Not bad. But check out these speed tests down here, okay? So, in this case, they've got this MicroDisk connected to the Raspberry Pi in an Argon 1 M2 case, which you can purchase. In fact, at the top, it lists useful things that you might need to use these. So, for example, this is the exact NGFF case that you might need to connect it to your Raspberry Pi via USB 3. And I love that they put that right at the top because I was kind of wondering if that was going to be included. But it's right there, and it's $11. So, this plus the USB 3 cable to attach it directly to your Pi would be about $60. So, with this speed test, though, check this out. Sequential write speed is 33 megs per second with the 128 gigabyte micro SD card. It's 315 megabytes per second with this similarly sized solid state drive. That's 9.5 times as fast. And if you go with random write speed, it's 14 times as fast. Look at that ridiculousness. Woo! Look at that. I'm just, it's incredible. So I didn't even know that you could do this, but it seems to make your Pi much, much faster because it can read and write faster with this compared to a micro SD card. And it looks like that when you got it all set up. USB 3 on the Pi side, and then your SATA connection over there. Then the final one that we have in here is this MakerDisk 128 gigabyte, or 120 gigabyte, 2.5-inch SATA 3 SSD. And that requires, you may need an SSD expansion board with USB 3, which is also available here. That's $40. So, altogether, this would come to about $70, but which is a bit more expensive for less space, but it depends on what your needs are, basically. 6 gigs per second with a capacity of 120 gigabytes. And let's take a look at what's in the box. Oh, I totally destroyed the packaging here, but oh yeah, look at you. Very cute. So this is the 120 gigabyte, 2.5-inch SATA solid state drive with SATA 3, 6 gigabytes per second, read speed up to 550 megs per second, write speed up to 460 megs per second. Smart and trim support. Let's take a look at that product page. This is the last one, and then I do want to try and hook up the Maker Nano to my Arduino IDE and see what we can do with it. Just a basic blink test on the different GPIO LEDs, I think. So Jamie says, is the Pi OS flasher you mentioned different to Imager? They have to burn the OS to removable media. It is, in fact, the same as the Imager. I just couldn't remember the name. Raspberry Pi Imager is the name of the app that Raspberry Pi has released that allows you, as Jamie says, to burn the OS to removable media, including, for example, micro SD cards using a little reader that you would attach to your computer. And then you can just choose the version of the Raspberry Pi OS that you want to put on there, select different options, and then hit flash, and it flashes your SD card, and then you can stick it in the Raspberry Pi, and everyone's happy. Very nice. Okay, so product page for this guy. You again have speed tests. You can watch this whole video with the MakerDisk. And you can check out, again, more information about read and write speeds. So again, you have about 10x write speed compared to a micro SD card. You've got about 14x random write speed rather than sequential, and then 5x random read speed. And here you have the types of adapters that you might need in order to connect it to your Raspberry Pi. And they give you the whole directions for how to set this up as well, which is really nice because I love being able to find all that stuff in one place, and it's right on the product page, which again is linked in the description below. So now that we've gone through all of these things, we've got the Maker Pi RP2040, we've got the Maker Nano, straight to the fun. We've got the Maker Pi Pico with its GitHub examples. We've got the Raspberry Pi micro SD card MakerDisk. The MakerDisk, this 2.5-inch format SATA SSD. And we've got the M2 format SATA 3 SSD. Beautiful. So we're going to go back to this Maker Nano, and I'm going to hopefully get it working immediately with no problems at all ever. It is a live demo as always, so we may have some thrills and spills, but we'll see. So this is supposed to go, so some of the devices we looked at today do run CircuitPython out of the box. This one is supposedly more for use with the Arduino IDE. So, ooh! I'm going to do that again because it did a little Mario thing. Go in there. Cute. And it's doing a little sort of shimmery animation with these LEDs. The one down here is just staying on. Then you've got little chaser lights. That's very cool. There is actually on the product page, I saw there's a Q&A question about where to get the code, the demo code that runs on here, because it's very useful to have one piece of code that shows you all of the different functions. And whereas one thing I love about CircuitPython is that all the sketches are stored directly on the board, and they're just .py files, so you can open it up in any text editor, you know, futz around, see the code that's on it, futz around with it, change things around, and then save it in the same place. All you do is hit, you know, Command S or whatever, or Control S, and the new code is on there and it runs, and then you can look at it again and tweak it again. Arduino, of course, that's, for me, that's one of the chief advantages of CircuitPython or MicroPython over Arduino, is that like you can just see what's on there. However, someone has requested the original Arduino demo code for this board, so we'll see. Yeah, I also kind of don't want to change it around, but we will see. So there are also two lights on here, one for 3v3 and one for 5 volts that are coming on. And besides that, we have pin D13 doing a little heartbeat blink over here. Whoop. And D13 is your standard Arduino test LED. Oh, interesting. There's a little solderable jumper. That must be for D13, I'm guessing. Yeah, it looks like you can actually cut the connection to D13 from the pin if you don't want it to be connected. That's pretty cool. Alrighty. Oh, muchos padres comprarán esta tarjeta a sus hijos por pura nostalgia. Nostalgic for, oh yeah, for this, yeah. The Mario nostalgia. Totally. Good to see you, Gustavo. Gustavo made a really cool PCB for us back in the day. That is a Hackster squid called Oshwi, and I've got one around here somewhere. Okay, focus, Alex. We're gonna try and upload a new Blink sketch onto here. Look at that beautiful code. Okay, time notwithstanding, at the end of this video, I'm going to plug in all of these and just see what they do for demo code, because this is so cool. All right, so I've got the Blink code here, and it's just the standard Arduino Blink code. I haven't installed any new board definitions, which could mess us up. I didn't see anything in the product page about installing new board definitions from Cytron, so we're going to see how it goes. I'm just going to hit upload as though this were a regular Arduino Nano. Compiling sketch. Still compiling. Oh, I have to choose the port. Lol. Come on, I know you can do it. Okay, so I got an error for not having selected the proper port beforehand. That's on me. I already knew that. Done uploading. Cool. So your standard Arduino Blink sketch, running on pin D13, with no modifications, no need to download any new board definitions. Isn't that exciting? This just works as though it were a regular Arduino Nano. So now I'm going to change the pin that we're using to one of these other ones. We're going to say D7, because why not? So pin mode 13, no, pin mode 7 output, digital write 7 high, digital write 7 low with 1000 millisecond delays. We're going to hit upload again, and it's going to take a little while. So this one will stop blinking, and then one of these ones here is going to start blinking. Oh, cool. Oh, here we go. I just noticed a really cool thing about this, which is that, is it still? Yes! Look at that! Okay, I don't think this is intentional, but look, they're accidentally touch sensitive. So if I like run my finger up here, the little LEDs go. I'm going to try and make it darker so you can see. Watch that. Isn't that cool? It's probably bad for it, but it's a pretty cool accidental effect. I love that. So that's the Maker Nano. And then you have the other ones. Oh yeah, we're going to plug those in and just see if they have any cool example code. Oh, Tariq translated the Gustavo's comment for us. That's wonderful. Oh, because I didn't translate it, because I didn't think to. Okay, same little Mario thing. Okay, um, I seem to have frozen. I think my computer is getting a bit overloaded. Oh no, I've definitely frozen. I'm gonna quick some things and wrap up the video real quick. Okay, so this may or may not end up in the video, but anyway, you can find all the links in the description below. Thank you again to Cytron for sending these things. Thank you for watching, and as always, hack on. Oh no.